Hello boys and girls, it's not the end of the season yet, but it's getting close, so I'm going to make my tier list ranking the dungeons that we had to play in Season 2 of Dragonflight, based on how enjoyable they are, and of course, difficulty, etc. So let's start not in order, but with the good ones. I think we have to put Freehold into the S tier. Overall, that's a very balanced dungeon. It has interesting bosses, which are not extremely hard, and it has various trash with different mechanics, etc. So I don't think there's anyone who didn't enjoy Freehold. It was pushable to a very high levels as well, so I think that's one of the wins for the current season. Next, I'm going to go with Vortex Pinnacle, and I'm also going to put it into the S tier. I don't know if many people are going to agree with this, but let's put it into low S. But I kind of like this dungeon, right? It has various trash with different mechanics, different things that you had to do. It has very good bosses with healing checks, mechanics checks. I guess the cons of the dungeons are the overlaps that happen during last boss. Sometimes you need externals for people to help the healer to survive the chain lightnings. And also the trash is a little bit linear. There's, I guess, one skip that you can do in the whole dungeon. You can pick where to skip, but pretty much that's it, right? So it's pretty straightforward dungeon. But I kind of like the variety and everything that the dungeon offered in terms of mechanics. So I enjoyed my time there. I was kind of angry that I had to spend probably the first few weeks entirely in Vortex Pinnacle because of the drink in the drop there, but that's a different topic for a different video. Let's next go to Neltaras, which I also think we have to put into the S tier. This dungeon had a lot of problems with the chains, with the tuning initially, but I don't want to take a lot of points out for that, because after the nerfs, it became actually quite nice. All the bosses were actually very nice. I was really enjoying the bosses. All of them were hard, not extremely hard, but they had different mechanics, different things that you had to adjust to. The trash was also interesting, also various. I guess the last boss had a curse that is not dispellable by every class, but after the nerfs, it was quite manageable even to heal through, as it was not stacking anymore. So overall, I didn't have high hopes of this dungeon, but it turned out to be one of the good dungeons in Season 3. So I think those are all the S's that I'm going to give. Let's move to the A tier, and I'm going to put Brackenhide Hollow there. Now, I kind of liked Brackenhide Hollow a lot. It was a dungeon where it had different routes, different trashes. You could skip some of the trash and not even see it. The bosses were very interesting. Again, different mechanics, different souls that you had to do. But I'm giving it A for two main reasons. First, the trash was extremely difficult if you don't have a Disease Dispel. So I was struggling on my Shaman, for example, and I had just very easy time on my H-POW. So that's some discrepancy between the healers that I'm advocating that this should change for a long time. I don't think it will, but it just made it very unenjoyable on certain classes and very enjoyable on others. So I think that's a minus because you're basically blocking part of the player base to play there and have a good time. The other one is basically the same. The first boss is very easy on some of the healers, just because they have the utility to deal with it, with the bleeds. For example, on the Paladin, I can bob, I can lay on hands, I can bubble myself, right? So I can get 3 of the bleeds myself, and if I have an Evoker, I can just dispel the Ford. While other healers have to deal with this just by raw HPS, which just seems unfair as well. So it's a great design, but the way they designed it kind of makes it so that, you know, certain classes have easier times than others, which in my eyes, it's not a good thing. Alright, then let's move to Underoath. Now, Underoath is a very interesting dungeon. I think many people enjoyed it. I actually like it a lot. It's a blast of a dungeon with various boss mechanics that we haven't seen in other places. The trash has some quite interesting requirements as well, with stops and everything. But I'm going to put it into B. And the reason for that is that, as you know, I play a lot of classes, right? And I do play my Shaman and Paladin to relatively high keys, or whatever I consider high keys, because 20s are not really high keys. But if you try to bug this dungeon into lower keys, that dungeon is actually undoable. Like, I probably had the most bricks and wipes in this dungeon, simply because if people don't know what to do and what are the mechanics of some of the bosses, those bosses become unkillable. So, the second boss, Kragmau, if people don't step on the little things, you cannot step on everything, right? So they just hatch and they kill the tank. In the third boss, if people just drop their stuff in the middle of the room and they don't kill the shrooms, once the boss explodes, just everything blows up and you die as well. And I even had DPS not doing the shrooms and then flaming, oh, the healer cannot keep us up. Yeah, I cannot keep you up with 11 stacks of the thing, right? And the same thing there. You can dispel some of this on some of the classes, you cannot on others, etc. So just because of that, I'm putting it into B, although I think that might be a bit unfair, because I think there are some awesome designs there, some very good things. It's just very bug unfriendly. That's my only criticism of this dungeon. Other than that, I think I had extremely good time, and I could probably put it into A as well. But I'll just put it into B just because of that. And then we have the bottom three, as I'm going to refer to these. I'm going to start with Notarian Lair. I'm going to put it into B as well. I don't think that's a bad dungeon, but the problem with Notarian Lair was that it was extremely overtuned in the beginning. And yes, it actually took a lot of time for them to tune it correctly, but that bitter taste from the start basically still remains until this day, at least for me. It is quite playable right now. It could be quite enjoyable, but there are also a lot of things there. So the third boss, after the nerfs, it's still a woe. It still feels unfair that some classes can dispel the poison, etc. I keep repeating that, but that's a big issue for me. And then there's also some trash that basically I forgot what they're called, but the guys that just throw discs at you, right? So they can just two-tap someone very quickly into higher fortified keys, so that kind of feels unfair. And then you need a priest to basically mind suit them and skip them, but if you don't have the priest, not all of the skips are executable, etc, etc. So that tuning, including some of the scorpions tuning at the end, etc, right, that was just a little bit too much. So I'm giving this dungeon a B, mainly based on the difficulty of the dungeon, I guess, and some of the tools that you need to handle it, execute it, do the skips, etc. Next, we're going to Halls of Infusion. I'm going to put this into a C. I was actually very hyped about this dungeon. I was looking forward to playing it, but there were many things in there that didn't turn out the way I was expecting them to turn out. So first, the dead run, right? So if you're bugging, you're going to die, and I don't care if I get a boost for the 20% of my dead run if I had to do the first 80% in like 3 minutes, etc, right? So that was very bad. I think they should just update the spawn point. If you kill a boss, you just go there. That's it, right? There's enough punishments in the dungeons already to be punished even more if you die. So that was a big minus for me, which just takes 1 or 2 points of this dungeon away automatically. But then it had very hard trash and very hard bosses that were not that easy to deal with in pugs. You have no idea how many times I would reach the first boss on Tyrannical Week and somebody who was not me would just last immediately. I was like, mate, just wait for phase 2. Oh, sorry, I didn't know about that. Right, so I think the bosses were not that bad of a design. Just that first boss was a big brick in many pugs. Too much damage, I guess, on the third boss, with some very interesting, I don't want to say bugs, but some very interesting interactions with the pillars, etc. that caused some wipes. And then the trash with the dragons and the gauntlet just made it very unenjoyable to play in pugs. I don't think it's a bad dungeon. I think the design is great. Maybe the tuning could be in question, but for pugs, it's just a place that I was avoiding the whole season, just because compared to other dungeons, it's very hard to execute when you don't have communication with your teammates, etc. So I'm very sorry to put this into C tier here, but it is what it is. I think they could have done a little bit better job managing everything. At least if the spawn point was not that bad, I could put it into B or A. And then Udeman, I have to put this into D. Simply because of the design of this dungeon. I think the bosses and the trash are great as ideas that they had in the design, but too many of the bosses here basically require for people to use externals that the healer does not have in their disposals. So the third boss, you need a bleed dispel. If you don't have it, you're basically screwed. And again, the paladin has too many twos to handle with this. Shaman has none, and even the Paladin can heal during the knockbacks, while the Shaman cannot, etc., because it's casting. So that's one thing. The last boss with the time sync the spells there, some classes have it, some do not, and then if you get stuck in a group that does not have them, then you're basically screwed as a healer on the last boss, because you can only dispel one, right? So that's also very unfair. Again, from Pug perspective, I guess if you have organized team, you have tools to deal with this, but if you're in Pug, you're screwed. And then, I guess, Trash is interesting, etc. But even having the Fort boss having phases, that's also something that I don't like, because simply, if you just don't have the DPS to push that one last percent, then you go into another phase, etc., and just prolongs the boss and becomes so long, etc. So this is my tier list. I don't know if you agree or disagree. Do let me know in the comments below. I guess soon I'm going to make a tier list for the Season 3 dungeons, which we are still waiting for one of them to be released and tested. But let's hope the distribution is a little bit better in Season 3, a little bit more towards the upper part of the table. Again, if you disagree, let me know why in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, happy healing and take care.